Hey guys, so for this one, I'm going to be showing you how to retarget the skin weights of a character. So over here, I'm going to go to my Freddy starter. After I have downloaded and unzipped it, I'm going to have a folder that looks like this. I'm going to have a workspace.ml. I have a couple of scenes, basic things for the character, the Freddy that we started with. And in this case, I'm going to have two special files that are going to be coming for Bonnie. So this is going to, after I unzipped the whole thing, is going to look something like this. So the first one that I would like you guys to do is open SKM Bonnie separated, and that is going to have the root that is going to be already attached to a layer. So as you can see, I can enable and disable it. And then a skin that is basically going to be containing, the meshes. Now, for your project, chances are that you have a single thing for the head, not multiple like I do over here. So it's going to be something like this probably. So let me do that mesh combined and delete everything else. I'm going to make a temporary layer just to hide the head so I can have everything else. And then something that kind of looks like this. So mesh combined, and then I just have a single one. So I'm going to delete these and the other one. That layer. All right. So I have the body and I have the head. Probably looks something like this. Maybe you're using Freddy's body as I am doing here with Bonnie. So remember, the proportions are going to be exactly the same. And that is important because we need to have the flex points of every single one of these pieces, right? So I have all of that already in place. But the important part is that this needs to be a single object. So I'm going to hide the skeleton over again. And if you have it like this, or you had it the way that I had at the very beginning, a lot of pieces, it's important for you to select all of these and go to mesh and combine. And then once it's a single object, delete the history with Alt Shift and D. And I'm just going to be renaming this thing SKM as my character, Bonnie. Okay. So I have root and I have this thing. At this point, I'm going to select that Bonnie and I'm going to be making it part of this layer. So I have this layer and this layer. I have the two of them. Now, with this in mind, I will do a file, saves in as, just to, if anything breaks, I don't have to go all the way down to where I was. So I'm going to go here, source images, and I have that as United. Okay, so that is basically what your starter is going to look like if you go to the United. But I wanted you to see how everything needs to be in a single piece, and then the skeleton is going to be the one that we're going to be sharing. All right, so step number 2 is going to be group these together. So select both of them, Control G, and then again, you can call that as your character, SKM, and this is going to be Bonnie _ GRP as in group, and I have that. Perfect. Okay. So next thing that I will do in this case is I can start painting the weights. For that, I can select, the root and then Bonnie, and then go to making sure that I'm in the rigging menu, go to skin and bind skin. Once I have that, if I select this, and let me hit the plus sign a couple of times just so I have an easier time moving this. Notice how it's bind, but it's not perfect, right? Look at this shoulder blade. It shouldn't be moving like that. So in order to fix that, also, I think the head is going to have some problems. Well, the head came relatively well, but it may have some problems. So what I want to do is, if step number 1 would be try to create all of the paint weights that I generated for Freddy already. So at that, I'm going to go File, I'm going to hit Import, and I'm going to look for the source images folder. I didn't set up the project, I should have, but I'm going to go to the source images folder, and then down here, I'm going to have an ASK Freddy. So I'm going to be hitting Import. It is really important that you make that group, because otherwise you're not going to have anything, and that you disable the use namespaces, and then change this resolve to all clashing nodes. So clashing nodes. When you import a file inside of Maya, it is going to copy the name by default, colon, and then whatever asset you're working with, whatever the name of the group is. So if I don't have this, I'm going to import something that is going to look like Freddy, SK Freddy, colon, and then root. I don't want that. I want it to be exactly the same name. And then I have the two, right? One right on top of the other. Now here, what I am going to be working with is going to be the same skeleton in both cases. But what I want is to have the weights from this guy into the other one. So I'm going to select Freddy, and then I'm going to select Bonnie, and then I will go into my skin and then copy skin weights. I'm going to go to the options. Now that's going to open a window. I have in the second monitor, and you're not going to be looking for closest joint. Actually, let me just reset all the settings. As you can see, is the default. You're not going to be looking for closest joint. You're going to be looking for 1 to 1, and then you're just going to be hitting copy. At that point, you are done with the Freddy model, so you can just delete it. And then if I move this, it is going to do a better job on the deformations because Freddy already had the skin weights on this one, right? So if I was to expand that from root all the way down to shoulder plate L, that is going to let me move this one. Now, there's going to be some mistakes because the mesh is not lining one-on-one. So my recommendation for the head, if it's not lining perfectly with these joints, and chances are it's not in your case, I made this character in such a way that it did. But if you didn't, if the joints that I have over here are not exactly the same as the joint that Freddy had, don't worry, you can flood all of the influences to the head, which is going to be this one over here, and that version can be totally fine. So I'm going to select this skin, and I'm going to go to binding pose there. Then I'm going to hide the skeleton, and I'm going to select some vertices that belong to different groups of the head. So I'm going to select all of these, and I'm just going to make sure that I have a bunch from different places. And I'm going to select hold control, right click and hold, and then to shell. So everything is going to be selected in that case, everything that belongs to the head, that is. And I will paint my weights. So I'm going to go to sculpting. Actually, my bad. I'm going to go to rigging, and then I'm going to click on this tool, which is going to be my paint weights tool. Now, for whatever reason, Maya doesn't show the window automatically. So you need to click here on the hammer. It's right here underneath the cross. And that is going to show you that. And then what I want to do is look for head. And I'm going to make sure that opacity is 1, value is 1, and I'm just going to be floating. So everything is going to be floated to the head. Again, if your character has better geometry and or your skeleton is lining up with him, you can potentially take a look at the eyeballs and take a look at the other things. So I could potentially just say, hey, everything here in the ear is going to be floated to this thing. So something like, hey, select this vertex, holding control and right click, I'm going to go to shell. And then I can do the same thing. But now instead of floating it to the head, I will be floating it to long ear left 2. And I can say float. And then that is going to be floated. So in my case, I don't particularly mind that it is floated to the whole head. And I wouldn't mind in your assignments either. In any case, making it so it lines up perfectly with the eyeballs and the other parts is super complicated. But at the same time, that also means that I can use the animations from the other character. So that is for the more particular part of the head. Otherwise, it's just going to be looking like this in a blank stare, which for the sake of our character kind of makes sense. All right, so at that point, I think I'm done. But the best thing that I can do in order to test it would be select all of the joints and then just do a simple transformation, maybe something like this. And there you go. You can see that I have a problem with other parts of the body, like, for instance, these bow tie. So I'm going to select a vertex here. I'm going to right click and hold. I'm going to say to shell. So everything is selected. And again, I'm going to go paint these here. In my case, I think that is going to go well with my spine tree. I can just float that and there you go. So that looks fine. I'm going to go back to this tool and I will say skin, go to bind pose. I have that All right, so I'm gonna do an increment and save. I'll increment and save, or actually I'm gonna do a save as, and this is going to be body not only united, but skin. And just to make sure that everything is in place, I can go File, Import, and I'm going to look for an animation. I can do something that moves all of the parts of the body. So for instance, I could be doing run. And if done correctly, it should be doing all of the animation, right? So this is going to go from 0 to 17. So I'm gonna click here on the gear. I'm gonna make sure first and foremost that I'm doing play speed 30 frames per second. And now that I'm just gonna be doing 17 frames. And this is again, just for testing. So 17. And I'm gonna hit play. This should be looping and beautiful. So all of the animations for this guy are coming. I don't see anything that is breaking. It might not be doing the facial expressions, but that's totally fine. That's that would be an extra. All right. So with that, I can just select my character again, and then actually I just need to reopen the file that I just created. That's gonna be that skinned. I hit open, do not save. And then there you go. I have my character that is completely skinned. And this is going to be the thing that I'm going to be exporting to add into my Unreal Engine project. So that's going to be a separate video. This is it for this one, and I'll see you in the next one.